this is the Ryujo. This is wolfswetpaws, who's a member of the Death Strike forums and has been a long-standing supporter on the stream and always hanging out and stuff. And is one of those people that truly cares about others. And let me just leave it at that. So when he sent me a replay and he emailed it to me, I'm like, all right, let's make sure we get this one covered for you. He supported me on Patreon in the past as well. So the Ryujo is the Tier 6 Japanese American... Japanese... Why did I say Japanese American? Japanese aircraft carrier. Told you guys I'm tired. And she's got some interesting little quirks to her. She was recently nerfed, actually. The big thing about most of the Japanese carriers is they've got AP dive bombers. These things are really good against battleships, can be good against cruisers. Her bread and butter is typically going to be the torpedo bombers, though. You do good, consistent damage with those torpedo bombers. And once upon a time, and y'all please do me a favor and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you go into attack mode with the torpedo bombers, you actually dive underneath the flak, right?
I don't remember if that was ever the case, but
you
I
can do it during initial. Like
Okay.
that happens when you initiate the run, but then the flak adjusts, but you get the minus 50% damage reduction anyways.
Right. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because torpedo bombers, typically they get the heal, although they don't at Tier 6 it seems. But compared to dive bombers, they will typically get less, they will take less anti-air and flak damage than dive bombers will, in general. So that's part of the reason why Ryujo is the bread and butter with the torpedo bombers. The rockets themselves are okay, but after the change with the mechanics where there's a delay for the rockets to hit and stuff, it's just more difficult to be able to reliably hit destroyers, especially with this. Grunty's writing a novel? Oh, there you go, Zediport.
You're better off using the torpedo bombers against destroyers for the most part, and there's a very good reason for that, because the fact that at the lower tiers, the Ryujo's torpedo bombers don't actually have that long of an arming time compared to, say, Koryu or some of the other higher tier Japanese aircraft carriers. That and, well, at tier 6, right? Let's be honest, most ships don't have very good AA. I can't think of a single one that has a good AA at tier 6, other than maybe, yeah,
Most
I got nothing. I can't think of it. Most of the other CVs. Maybe Dallas, if we're stretching it. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Kitchen Dun actually has some good AA.
Yep, it does. It does.
It's all mid-range. It's all concentrated 3.5 kilometer mounts.
Yeah.
So
Now, that, of course, all might change in the future, but let's go ahead and take a look at the build and stuff, because I don't want to get too much into, all the little nuances here. So Wolfie's build, he's, of course, maxed out the tech tree there. He's running Air Goose Modification 1, Aircraft Engines Mod, Secondaries, and Damage Control Mod 2. This is interesting. I don't think you need secondaries.
Scroll up a little bit. Okay. Oh, secondaries on the captain skills?
No, well, yeah, he's got secondaries on the captain skills, but he also has secondaries for the module. So he's bumping his secondaries out to a range of 5.76 kilometer with both of those. I don't think that's necessary.
For you, Wolf. Is this by chance a Shinano captain that you transferred over to your Ryujo?
Ah,
and then that's why you're using the secondaries.
That would make sense. You're a secondary battery fan. You enjoy close quarter actions. Okay.
The reason we ask is because Ryuju's secondaries aren't really great, even if you spec into it.
No.
There's just better things you can put your points in.
I remember once, though, I got a secondary kill in my Kaga and laughed my butt off.
Well, yeah, because Kaga does have those nice, big, meaty 200 millimeter secondary guns.
With only 4 kilometer range. So
They're nice to hit, too.
Yeah.
All right, but being trained up from somewhere less than 9 skill points. Got it. Okay. So, in personal opinion, Wolfie, I don't think secondaries are that useful on this particular ship. And I might go for maybe attack aircraft mod if you want to use this to practice this a little bit, a little bit more with the rockets. The extra 2 seconds to attack time helps. For torpedo bombers, generally you don't find yourself needing that extra 5 seconds. But if you're going into an attack with either of these and then like you run out of time, this happens to me all the time with my attack aircraft. I would probably go for that. Oh, that's fine, Wolfie. You can. No, that's not a problem. I just wanted to share that, especially because, if this goes up on YouTube, hey, I want people to kind of see, all right, here's your style, and then, not necessarily the right way, but maybe a different or generally accepted way of playing it. That's all. And then you've gone for damage control mod 2 for fire extinguishing and flooding time. I know you said you like to be aggressive and in people's faces, but I would think you'd want to try to do something to enhance the hit points of one of your squadrons, especially if you find yourself running out of planes at the end of the game. You might want to enhance the hit points of some of these squadrons. Which one would we do? Probably the torpedo bombers.
You want to be going. Yeah, you want to be going for torpedo bombers.
I would go with torpedo bombers just because, it's your main source of attack.
And there's no heal. There's no heal for it.
The other thing too is that if you do, the other thing too is if you do choose to go down the rest of the line, at the very least you'll have it trained properly for Shikaku, Bakuryu, and even Sekiryu if you choose to play that. Which is, I would argue, extremely important, to say the least. Did I miss anything else? Let me think. Not really.
Exactly, Wolfie. Exactly, yeah. All right, this is a standard captain. And you've gone for improved engine boost, torpedo bomber, aircraft armor, survivability, enhanced aircraft armor, and then there's your secondaries. So here's the deal. I would absolutely go air supremacy first point. This is huge. The extra 5% for aircraft prep time. This is when you have this. This is when it shines, is towards the mid to late game, when the difference. This could be the difference between a full attacking flight or not. So to me, the extra, yes, that's right. You can see tier 8 AA sometimes. So we'll get to that part in a second. But air supremacy, I would definitely go for that. Improved engine boost is okay, but I would start here. And then I would definitely do improved engines as well to get that 2.5% extra squadron speed. Every little bit helps, especially if you're if you're trying to get your planes to battle quicker. Also back to your carrier quicker so that they can be rearmed and reused for your next strike. I know you said you like to play aggressive and up close and personal to get your secondaries in range. So you might feel like you don't need the engine speed as much, but I still feel like that's going to help.
There's a lot of times where you can't be aggressive. Remember, a lot of players do not like CVs and will shoot you at every given opportunity. So oftentimes it's better to stay back until the late game where you can more safely move up.
Right.
What I will also note about Ryujo is that, much like the Ranger, it has almost no Citadel armor whatsoever. In fact, none of the Tier 6 aircraft carriers have any Citadel armor. Which only further reinforces the point of saying that you should stay in the back. The good news is that Ryujo does actually have fairly good concealment for a Tier 9 carrier. Or Tier 6, sorry. Even I'm tired. But yeah, so reasonably speaking, I would personally just build into the torpedo bombers if I were if you were going with like a Shinano captain. What I would do, if you're going to use it for Shinano, what I would do is, instead of using flak damage reduction, I would probably go with the torpedo skill, the 4-point torpedo skill.
Yep.
But I would keep everything else. Enhanced aircraft armor is good, but the problem is that it's not really that useful if you're dodging flak for the most part anyways. If you get what I mean. Like, that skill is only really useful for in my opinion, at least for the Russian carriers, because your damage output is maximized by the number of planes that you have in a strike, because of the fact that it's
so every plane
in a single run anyways.
Right, so every plane that you lose hurts. That's true. I often consider enhanced aircraft armor a bit of a noob trap, because a lot of newer players look at this and say, oh, this will be great because, I'll take less damage from flak. But the reality is 2 flak hits and you've already lost a bunch of your planes, even with this skill. So it comes down to being able to dodge flak. Exactly right, Wolfie. As you become better at doing that, enhanced aircraft armor becomes less important to you. So I would agree with the idea of dropping enhanced aircraft and then going proximity fuse, because yes, this is your bread and butter for your torpedo bombers. Now what this does is it negates 10% of torpedo protection. So when you look at, especially battleships, if you look at their armor scheme in game, there will be a torpedo bulge, and that torpedo bulge has an inherent damage reduction of a certain percentage. So whatever the maximum hit point possibility is, maximum damage a torpedo is, when it hits that torpedo protection, the damage is reduced by that amount, also by any saturation. So that is only effective if it hits the area of a bulge. So you're talking about usually the side of the ship, okay? If you hit the bow or the stern, prox fuse doesn't really matter, because there's typically 0 torpedo protection on the bow or stern. Continuous damage is mitigated somewhat by skills which make planes tougher. Yes, continuous damage is aircraft armor and survivability expert. So on my YouTube, I've got a core build for aircraft carriers, and it's usually air supremacy followed by improved engines, followed by aircraft armor and survivability expert. Like, that's my core build. And then from there, what I recommend is you build into starting to do damage, and the damage is based off of what carrier, what type of damage is best with that specific carrier. If it's your torpedo bombers, obviously you go proxy fuse. If it's dive bombers, then you go bomber flight control. For American carriers, for example, it's usually both, because both squadrons are really good. Now, Wolfie, to go back to your earlier comment about how important is 5%, I've been flicking it back and forth, and you can see here, for your torpedo bombers, that's 4 seconds. For your dive bombers, whoops, wrong button. For your dive bombers, that's also about 4 seconds, just under 4 seconds. Now, that might not seem like a big deal. However, if you are cycling through the different squadrons, you are getting 4 seconds faster restoration time for each of your 3 squadrons. That adds up pretty quick in the heat of battle. Like I said, this skill is most important in the mid to late game, when every plane counts, having as many planes as possible to be able to do a strike on a ship that's almost dead and to secure the win. That's where supremacy becomes so important, okay? At the beginning, it doesn't matter, because you've got full squadrons, and you can just throw them away. But as you lose planes, air supremacy becomes more and more important, okay? And the same thing with improved engines. This also helps get your squadrons available to attack sooner. So that's why core builds, these 4 is absolutely where I always start on a carrier. And then from there, like I said, I'll look into damage, and then I look at the improved engine boost as like utility too. Torpedo bomber, great choice, by the way. You could do swift flying fish, but this kind of negates this. They kind of cancel each other out. If you got faster torpedoes, then you have to drop them farther away from a target. And then that almost also forces you to go into the aerial torpedoes mod here. This is really only good for, I would say, maybe the German carrier line, because they've got faster torpedoes. But, I agree with you not building into that.
Yeah.
All right.
For the German carriers, you probably want to build more into the AP skill rather than, say, anything else at
oh, yeah.
The 3rd tier.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the fact that, they have AP dive bombers and AP rockets, that extra bit of damage really does. I mean, it's nice to have, right?
That's right.
Maybe if you're running, like, say, a Legend Unique upgrade, then sure. Otherwise, yeah, go AP scale. Anyways, let's take a look at the matchmaking. Mid-tier, it's an independence, so that thing has a group fighters, so you want to be aware of that. Nothing really has a ton of anti-aircrafts at this tier. Maybe the Colorado, if it is fully upgraded and not stuck.
Colorado could be problematic. I mean, you are in a tier 7 game. Trying to find your planes. Where'd they go? I usually like to get a screenshot at the start, but I kind of mistimed it. Oh well.
It's mostly Colorado, and that's more due to being tier 7 than having good AA.
It does actually have pretty decent mid and short range AA, so obviously for dropping on the hull, it can get kind of awkward, but otherwise it should be alright.
Good to discuss. Also good to remember how to manage squadrons, minimize their exposure to flak, maximize. Yep, we'll be looking at that.
Yep,
yeah, and I heard that I heard
on.
Texas AP has been, or anti-air has been buffed a bit too, huh?
You're correct.
Yeah, it's getting defensive AA fire. It's getting DFAA.
Oh, wow, okay.
Also, the Russian destroyers are getting buffed, which is my favorite thing out of this whole new set of patch changes, because of the fact that I love the Navy, and it's finally getting healed, so...
The entire line is getting heals, and Octavoy is getting effectively a rework.
Dutch, hey!
It's getting a bit.
Thank you for the sub, Dutch.
Better.
Honestly, we can cover the rest of it later if you want to do a Zath chat.
We'll do a Zath chat. I think, yeah, that'd be good.
Well, yeah, that's obviously a topic for later. But Dutch, thank you very much. 9 months is such a long time. You're still watching this, American. Thank you very much for your 9 months of support, dude. Pre-dropping would be a good idea, yes. So for people that don't understand what that means is you drop one squadron ahead of time right away when you're doing your attack. Okay, let me see if I can get my screenshot now. I always like to get a screenshot of the carrier launching planes. Ah, there we go. That'll work.
That looks nice, actually.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Something like that.
So when it comes to good points on the topic of pre-dropping. When it comes to pre-dropping, what you do want to be aware of under most circumstances is, and this is what the all the Asia carrier mates taught me, is that, or at least mostly Stratmania, who taught me how to play carriers. What he told me is, judge when you need to pre-drop versus when you can say, you know what, I don't need to pre-drop, I can go with the full squadron and attack full strength, right? Judging that is important, right? Because if you get multiple opportunities to drop, like, consistently, as opposed to, say, like, you know, you're stuck, you have to you can only really get off one drop, that's kind of important. At low tiers, it doesn't matter as much, but for higher tiers, it definitely matters.
Yep.
Just because of the AA disparity.
I would pre-drop here. Sorry, I was quiet. And the reason is this: you have 4 attacks in this whole squadron. Realistically, what you want to aim for is getting 2 attacks off. Like 3 is a stretch. You're probably not gonna get this unless you're really top tier. But you can get 2 drops off by pre-dropping once anyway. So you have 2 planes to lose out of 6 then, and I think that's gonna work. The extra 2 planes you have here while going in with 8, you're never gonna drop with them, you're just opening them up to get them shot down, and I would just prevent this in the first place.
Early in the match, you typically want to pre-drop because you find ships that are, as you can see, you know, together. You're getting greedy here.
Right here, the perfect example, like you got the 2 drops off. If you go for the 3rd drop here, you're gonna lose a plane and you probably only get 1 drop off. 1 plane shoots down first then. Okay,
he does. He does get the torpedo hit.
He did get the drop off, but the thing is, he got the drop off because he did the quick turnaround, which caused him to not fully aim. If he goes all the way around to precisely aim the drop, he's probably gonna lose that plane.
Right.
So.
And Painkiller over on Kick, hello by the way. I think I put my Discord link in my page, Painkiller for Kick. If not, You can always check it out over on Twitch or YouTube. I've got the Discord link there. Fighter drops to eliminate their fighters are part of the vision control aspect. Yeah, that is true, Wolfie. And I saw you do that twice so far. The thing is, if you do that to eliminate their vision, you're also eliminating your vision too, that you provide your team. So keep that in mind. The nice thing is you get extra XP. Like right here, for example, you're putting a plane up to try to keep vision on, I guess, the Anshan as well as the Zara at Sharnor's 43, and that's a good use of your plane right there.
Generally speaking, it's better to further your own gameplay than to hamper the enemies.
Right. Right. You do get some nice base XP from shooting down the planes, and possibly you've got, you know, a mission for that. I like your change here of the AP dive bombers on the Rio, because the Rio, of course, doesn't have any anti-air, so you can take your time with him, especially because he's separated from everybody else. And this is where carriers really shine. Yeah, make him suffer. He should suffer. He's in a carrier match, and he went off on his own. That's his own problem.
Yeah, he painted a target on himself. Just punish him appropriately.
Now your turn left. I would have turned right, because now you see you have to have this extra turn to get in front of him now.
It's also nice of him to just sail in a straight line.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to care about you one bit.
For the record, it is also low tiers, so...
He bought the ship.
Yeah.
It is, in fact, a skill issue.
Yes, clearly a skill issue. He played the game.
Hey, Barford. The Darwin Award, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now-
Kind of curious about your carrier positioning, though. It looks a bit far back.
That's like what? That's way too far back. What I would be doing, actually, if I were in that, if I was playing the carrier right there, right, I would be moving my hull down to about, yeah, exactly where it's at painted it, at C4, right?
Yep.
And then I would, depending upon the rotation of the enemy ships, what I would be doing is I would be not there. I would be moving it to the the first one you marked at D3, right? But I'd also position my hull to run, because if they somehow manage to push back through, that could get very awkward very quickly. So
Something like that,
D3.
so that you can run away if you need to.
Yep. D3, I would agree. It's a safe one. If you want to be super aggressive, like what your build is trying to
Way
do,
too
then
close.
D4 or D5 would be more appropriate.
Right, which is why I was highlighting here. I agree. But you are a little
you
bit far
dropped that
back.
way too close, by the way, Wolf. See, that was a good drop. But what I would have done with that first drop, Seth, you just pause it for a quick second, if you don't mind.
Okay.
What I would have done with that first drop is drop it at long range, right? Don't get it right up on his hull. Because here's the thing. Doesn't matter if it's a good cruiser player or a bad cruiser player or whatever, right? Doesn't matter who it is. They are always going to dodge torpedoes no matter what. I'm dropping it at long range, and he's going to slow down, right? Because he's going to slow down and try to fit the gap or go on the outside of the torpedoes. Use that to your advantage, right? So when you're dropping from directly ahead, yeah, he did that, but he also slowed down, which is why you were able to hit both those torpedoes a lot more effectively, right? Because he'd slowed down, right? If he was still going full speed, it might have been difficult for you to lead a little bit more because you didn't really have the aim time on him. So instead, on that first drop, you drop it at, like, say, 2 kilometers instead of dropping it right on his hull. That forces him to turn in and slow down. And
So
then you can
essentially,
turn and line up the drop a little more effectively.
essentially what he's trying to say is, if you drop the torpedoes from farther away at a target that's coming head on, those torpedoes are a threat for longer. And that forces him to deal with those torpedoes. And while he's dealing with those torpedoes, you're already lining up for your next attack. If you drop right in front of him, then he's already either A, dodged, or B, he's going to dodge, but he's already dodged them, or they've hit by the time you haven't even started your second attack. So that's the idea, is to make them a threat for longer, and that's what. By the way, with
you're
you being so,
cross-dropping him.
yes, you're essentially cross-dropping, because then
Yeah.
you want to try to get the first set of torpedoes to be almost hitting around the same time as your second. You tried for a cross-drop with a destroyer, yeah. It's a hammer and anvil tactic, exactly, Altador. One thing I also want to highlight is if you look at the mini-map, and when we've been talking about your carrier positioning, this is where that 2.5% engine cruising speed is really hurting you, because it's taking you 2.5% longer to get your planes into action, and because you're so far away, it kind of compounds on that. If you were playing up close and more aggressive, then I could see you getting away with not taking that commander skill. But, dude, you definitely need it.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Having that extra, yeah, you need plane speed. Plane speed is life, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the one lesson I've learned from playing. And you dropped away too close again.
Oh, you got one hit.
Here's the thing. Arming time is arming time. You got one hit, but if you dropped it a little bit further out, could have been two.
Mm-hmm. The match is still long. The match is still young, and some long-range ships could hit. So here's the thing. If you put yourself here, or even here, as your flank advances, yes, there's a possibility of you being hit, but there's so many other targets that are closer to the enemy that are probably going to be spotted. So the enemy has to like literally say, okay, I'm going to choose not to shoot this target that's right in front of me, and instead choose the carrier that's in the backfield because I hate the carrier. That does a couple of things. One, most importantly in my opinion, is it takes the enemy's eye off the target. They start looking at you instead of whichever target is closer that they should be shooting at. That helps your teammates stay alive at the expense of some of your hit points. You can take some damage and be okay with it. So it's alright to be a little bit more aggressive. Bella Justin, hi. Welcome back.
But there's also the risk that you just get one-tapped off the screen by, like, Colorado or Scharnhorst. Because I know I can do it.
It's a possibility, but that's assuming you're detected and you're broadside and sitting still, right? Like, you know, if he's properly positioning behind islands, it's really difficult for him to be detected, right? One, and two, he's moving. It's just harder to, to hit. Blind launch, here's the deal about that, Wolfie. If you wait until the Tsar smoke expires, because it doesn't last that long, once it expires, then you're like, hello, and you can just kill him. So I don't like the idea of a blind strike unless
you just drop a fighter near him anyways.
Yep. Unless you know that one torpedo will kill him, or something like that. Am I a newbie on Kick? Yeah, I started multi-streaming a little while ago, Bella Justin. And so I'm over on Kick and Rumble and YouTube. My primary platform is Twitch. But yeah, welcome on in. That strike was a little behind. Oh, but you hit him anyway. This game, we do World of Warships, mostly, Bella. And then we also do other games, like Monday nights we do Manor Lords or some other stuff to hang out. Alright, now, I'm going to pause it. Well, I don't need to pause it, but I want to direct your attention to the mini-map for a second, Wolfie. You are sailing the carrier in the direction of the enemy's push. That's nice in that it means that you're going to get your planes on target quicker, but also really scary because you're putting your hull into danger. So if you're really worried about being shot at in your carrier, the last thing you should be doing is heading towards the enemy's strong side. Where am I from? I'm in Chicago, America. How about you?
So a good rule of thumb for positioning, fall behind your teammates and just use one of the islands there.
That's right.
That way, if they destroy like the bulk of your team like that, you're probably lost anyways. But otherwise, you can move up with them, and you keep them safe with fighters, and they keep you safe by standing in front of the enemy.
Yep. So you've realized the problem. You're starting to turn your carrier around, which is fine. You're welcome to Bella. But I just, like, it's nice that you're going to help your Hyugas probably survive or something, but, you know, had you been supporting the push on this side, you know, maybe now would be a good opportunity to switch to the Ashitaka, for example, but you're kind of stuck in that you've got a Scharnhorst, an Asturias, Kavor, and the Ashitaka that you have to kind of deal with. Whereas, really, you just want one.
Yep. On top of that, you really need to start striking ships that are actively contributing to the battle. Asturias, yeah, getting a kill is nice, but he isn't doing anything. In fact, here you can argue it's a waste because he's not doing anything. He's tying up your planes from doing something else.
Mm-hmm. Logo and banner for my channel.
Top-tier cruiser, and getting rid of that is important. But look, if you know, I'm way behind because
Yeah,
I
that
don't know what this banner
Ashitaka
like.
The Ashitaka is starting to look at the Leon. The Independence is going to be striking that group as well. So if your CV was positioned as something like G3, then you could easily put fighters over Leon and then attack the Ashitaka. Get him out of the fight faster and conserve some HP for your teammates.
Right. And to me, the Scharnhorst 43 and the Ashitaka are the big threats, because they're ones that have also, by the way, overextended, so it's easier for you to drop on them. You know, Ashitaka might be the best choice between the two, because he's going to be divided, right? He's going to be focusing on hitting the Leon, which is on the opposite side, and you get to strike him from the side he's not looking, which really helps, because it's harder for him to dodge. Now, you're going for the Scharnhorst 43 right now. He's probably got enough time to focus on your planes while also dealing with the Hyuga, because if you look at angles, you're attacking from about the same side. Yeah, I do have a Discord. It should be linked on Kick.
So, another thing to consider, once Scharnhorst is dead, Hyuga is not gonna do that much. Or if Hyuga dies, then Scharnhorst can't really do much. Whereas Ashitaka will be starting to fight the Lokundum, and then maybe the sub.
Yep.
But anyways, the southern ships are more critical, I think.
Totally agree there. Also, when the Sharn 43 put up his plane, I would have immediately pre-dropped, sent one squadron back, did my run, and then immediately recalled. You lost, what, 4 planes there? Bella, no offense, but yeah, I suppose. I don't really do artwork and stuff like that. Anything I do myself, and so that's just a me thing. Also, wife does not support me spending money on streaming, so I appreciate the offer, but I must respectfully decline. You also really haven't been using your engine boost at all, and you spec'd into that. I don't think I've seen you use engine boost once this whole game.
That's actually a huge problem now because, well, Scharnhorst you don't need it much, but if you're striking any other ship, you should, in fact, you should be down to 1 or even out of engine boost right now. One problem I did have when I was
That's...
Yeah, actually one problem I had when playing CVs was the same thing, just not using engine boost. There's no point in saving engine boost for the end of the game, just because if the faster you get ships out, the more you can snowball.
Yep.
The earlier, basically you want to snowball it earlier, and getting your planes to the right positions faster is well worth not having it in the late game.
Right. Right, okay, so you're using it now. Makes sense, fine. I mean, I could see trying to hold 1 in reserve for the end. Right, exactly, yes. It's getting your planes to target faster. And again, you know, that 2.5%, man. You know? It really does add up.
Yep. And I agreed to stop shooting the
also
Scharnhorst.
remember. So, I really need to figure out what's going on with my Wi-Fi. I'm gonna mute for that.
Okay.
So yeah, I agree with the decision to go after the Kavora. the short horse was running away. He's no longer a threat. And then the Kavor is the one that's actively engaging the Gundam.
I wouldn't drop on him here. He's probably gonna burn out.
I would do it just because you want the kill.
Okay. 5% more speed equals 5% larger turns. I mean,
That's not how pi r squared works, I think.
the big thing is, the big thing is, you're losing a lot of time transiting, getting to your target. And so, yes, maybe you can't make as tight of a turn to get the follow-up drop in, but you're also getting the drop in that much earlier.
Increased turning radius is negligible. You just need, if it's really that bad, you just manipulate your throttle. That's it.
Yeah, it does come down to trade-offs and preferences, but I would say, and you can't hear because the ad's playing, but I do have over YouTube too. Give it a try.
This one is...
No. There is no preference thing. This is just flat out wrong.
Basically, we're saying this, the advantage of 5% speed is way too high to ignore.
Think of it too as having a bigger presence on the battlefield because you're able to get your strikes in earlier. And because your planes return that much quicker to your carrier, you're able to cycle them through quicker too. Now you're striking the Normandy, which is fine. Once again, you flew through the carrier plane, and now, see, there you go. So, again, when you see the enemy put up a plane, if you intend to strike through it, pre-drop so you just get the one hit in and be done with it. Try to save your planes for later.
Not at this point, don't need to. You have a minute to play.
I mean,
Oh, that's true. There is only a minute
left. What you
left.
should do is, like, you should recall the planes immediately after the drop. To give them a chance to get to the safety before the enemy planes engage. Like, every second you spend on the battlefield after this drop is a higher chance your planes get shot down.
You've basically won. So unless a sub suicides into his auto ESW, you've pretty much won.
Well, and the other big thing too is you're finally starting to move your carrier. You know there's only 3 ships left in the game. I would honestly be moving my carrier to where the Hyuga is. Because, I mean, you know, or maybe behind the island here, but you know.
30 seconds. What?
Yeah,
You
true.
need to be there now.
Yeah. Also a good point.
Like, you don't have enough time to set up a run now because you basically forgot speed boost existed.
You can't help capping D in any way possible as a carrier. If the enemy CV wants to drop through you, it drops through you. You cannot stop that.
I think you just lost track of the match time.
Yeah, that's what he just said. I mean, you still end up with a kill at the very last second. Lol. All right, so you got the Bounty Hunter achievement. Nice. You got your Kraken as well and Confederate. 135,000 damage is it's quite sexy in a tier 6 battle.
Tier 6.
Yeah. You didn't expect the last sinking? Well, yeah, I figured that was going to happen. I figured that was going to happen because of just the timing and stuff. That was your only hope. And ironically enough, if you played this exact battle like a couple years ago, you wouldn't have gotten that last kill because the game would have stopped immediately. So it was a good game, Wolfie. It was a good game. I would highly recommend, even if it's on PTS or something, experimenting with changing your captain build and getting those 2 core build skills in and seeing how that impacts the game. You got more hunter achievements. Hunter bounty. Oh, okay.
I killed more bounties as a bounty than I did without being one.
Yeah, with the change in the game cutoff. Yeah.
It's a very good game, but or pointing out a lot of things that you could do to improve your gameplay.
Yep. In general, Wolfie, I think you could use to pre-drop a little bit more often, especially at the beginning of the game. Especially when you're up tiered in a tier 8 games, right? That's when pre-dropping becomes really crucial. Do take a look at your commander builds and see if you want to change things up with that. And then the only other thing I think Shockwave was hitting that a lot was, when you're dropping on something that's bow onto you, drop from much earlier so that you have the time to loop around and get your anvil strike in. Okay? I want to ask the Peanut Gallery how much of what they're saying is simply to exhort their preference and how much they are appreciating the style of others. Wolfie, everybody, of course, has their opinion. Everybody, of course, has their perspective. Just like when Citybor put down his computer build and Grunty proceeded to crap on it forever. The thing is, everybody's got their opinions on it. Is something better than another? I think pre-dropping for you in this particular game wasn't as important, but like I said, it's good. I think it's a good habit to get into, especially when you're going up against something that has a plane up. Why just give that person 4 of your planes for free if you can avoid that, right? And I think the dropping from nose on to something is also a very important skill to have. Now, as far as your commander build is concerned, that's really up to you. You take the advice or not. We're not doing this to, poke fun of your build or anything like that. We're of course trying to give you some good quality feedback here. So, it's up to you if you want to take that or not. And honestly, I think it's stuff that carriers are extremely difficult because everybody's got their different way of playing them and setting them up. Today's date is the 21st, right? Wow, my birthday was exactly 1 month ago.
Today's the 21st.
Awesome.
Okay, I should be fine now, I think.
Okay.
Because my internet stabilized itself. Weirdly, I'm talking about birthdays. My birthday was actually just 1 week ago.
Well, happy birthday.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Examining all assets of a jewel is good. Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. And Citybor, Grunty gave you some good insights. Awesome. I wanted to take a look at that build, but we got the replay going for this right now. What do you guys think we could do for a title for this?
Let's see. There's a couple things we kind of mentioned. I think the big one was carry positioning, because that kind of robbed him of a couple of strikes.
Oh, good point. Good point. Okay, yes.
Especially in this game, since your position is so far behind, I noticed at the very end, you actually had a lot of planes in reserves.
Mm-hmm.
That basically indicates you're not being aggressive enough. You should be down to probably you had 3 or 4 torpedo bombers in reserve. You should be down to maybe a few, maybe 4 or 5 planes ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much basically too far back you were playing.
Well, Wolfie, it's not bad in the sense that obviously it allows you to have an impact on the game at the end of the game. What SAT is saying is when you look at your plane count at the end, use that as a way to give you feedback about how aggressive you're being with your planes. You got very lucky this game. You had a lot of enemies that poked themselves out, in the middle of nowhere so that you could strike them and basically lose no planes like the Rio. So that worked in your favor. But what they're saying is in a game like this, when anti-air isn't as strong, abuse that more, essentially. You know what I mean? You can afford to be more aggressive. Ironically enough, that is all with you losing a lot of your planes to the fighters, exactly. Because you lost a bunch of them here. I can pull up on this one here, and you can see you lost 2 from the Scharnhorst 43's fighters. You lost 3 from Independence's fighters, right? So pre-dropping there might have saved those. But what's interesting is, how well did the opposing carrier do? We can look at that in a second, Wolfie. I like to focus on you for this because you control you. The bombers you lost here, you lost 2 to the fighters from that. So that wasn't too bad. But Sharner's 43, at least he got some good plane kills out of it. But the point is, you were only attacking with your torpedoes and AP bombers, right? And you did use your rockets a little bit. So you're cycling through your planes well. The big thing is, especially with the fact you didn't take the flight control to get the extra, whatever, 2.5%, to reload, you still had a lot of planes towards the end of the game. So that means one of 2 things. One is you weren't flying through as much anti-air and flak to lose those planes, which, hey, that's a good thing, right? But the other is you spent too much time transiting, too much time going from one place to the next, so you weren't striking as frequently as maybe you could have. Because you want to be striking as frequently as possible, especially in a game with low anti-air. You don't want to be afraid to do that. But the problem is going back to your hull positioning, with your carrier being so far away and you not having that skill to speed up your cruise time, and compounding all of that, not using your boost as frequently as maybe you should have, you simply got in probably 1 or 2 fewer strikes from each of your squadrons in the course of this 20-minute game. 1 or 2 fewer for each. That's maybe 6 total strikes that you missed out on because of those factors. So keep that in mind. That's what they're talking about with being aggressive. When you look at your plane count at the end, okay, if you've got mostly full planes, okay, then that tells you you weren't as aggressive enough one way or another. If you're out of planes completely, then that's going to tell you, okay, you were too aggressive, right? You flew way too much in a tier 8 flak. And you even talked about tier 8 is very oppressive when you get up tiered to that. So I get it. And it's good habits to have, to be careful around that kind of stuff and to choose your targets. This is an example where, you look at the game and you look at the matchmaking and you make those decisions earlier on. Okay, not a lot of anti-air. Shockwave even mentioned at the start of the game. Not a lot of anti-air in your battle. Cool. Now you can really go to town with your planes. And I didn't really feel like you were really going to town as much as you were playing just your default play, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You had a great game and you came in 2nd place on your team. You should feel damn proud of that. All right? And no one's trying to rob you of that feeling of pride. Seriously, no one. I would be very happy to have this game. You saw Tune-Up's response. Holy crap, you did that much damage? Like, dude, yeah, we're all cheering you on.
It's a very good game. All we're saying is it's very good. We think you could have done better. So we gave you these tips. So these next games will be even better.
Exactly. And yes, you targeted self-isolated ships. Good.
Yeah, the goal is never to be like, because here's the thing, right? Everybody is like, I need to improve immediately. People have this mindset that, if I do really well, yada, 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 I'll become really good overnight. That never happens.
No.
It never happens. You don't become good overnight, right? After playing, I don't know how many battles I've played up to this point, 16,000 officially, maybe more. Unofficially, counting everything else, I can say that I still have a lot of things to learn.
God,
the
yeah,
truth
me
of the matter is that nothing's perfect. No one can ever be perfect, right? The goal is to always try to figure out, okay, how do I become better on a day-to-day basis when doing anything? Never mind, just playing the game regularly too, right?
Yep. One of my favorite experiences. Sorry, finish your thought, Shockwave.
No, it's just I don't really have much of a thought to finish. It's just, like just continually working on what you know and learning new things definitely helps. Yep.
Giving your teammates intel and helping them distract opponents while they're targeting them also helps. Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. Yes. Your first 2 fighter drops were more to deny the enemy of their intel, and I'm going to say it like this. You're very fortunate that the enemy Independence wasn't as good of a carrier player as I've seen. And what I mean by that is The Independence line, that carrier line going up to Yorktown and Essex, is pretty darn good fighters. And if they do it properly, they can really become a pain in your butt and shoot down most of your planes. He wasn't doing that. He was doing his own thing and allowing you to do your own thing, which works really well for, frankly, both of you guys. And it goes back to the good old RTS days when we had the CV bro agreement, right? Like, you go into chat like, dude, I'll leave you alone if you leave me alone, and everybody just goes and farms, which Wargaming said you can't do. But anyway, officially, right? If you're on the Asia server, that's where the number 1 comes in very handy. Anyway, so what I wanted to say before, Wolfie, is one of the best experiences I ever had at a player gathering at Anchors Away was somebody came up to me and said, I sent you the best game I ever had, and you pointed out that I had so much to learn. You pointed out all these different, mistakes that I didn't recognize were mistakes. And what was so cool about that was the growth mindset he had, because I was expecting his next line to be, and you're an asshole for that, or, whatever. But the fact that he looked at it and said, no, I appreciate that you took the time to tell me all these kinds of things. That was awesome. So I thanked him by giving him an Alabama, if I remember right.
Whoa.
Yeah,
What?
Here, have a ship.
What?
So you're saying I should, next time I meet up, if I ever go to the meetup, then I should just say your replays helped me a lot. Can you give me a Napoli or something?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You're welcome to try that, SAT. You're welcome to try that. Historically, when we've had player events, Wargaming has given us cards that we can give ships away to people. One of my favorite experiences, we're getting on a little tangent, but one of my favorite was I gifted Nico Power in Alaska. Nico Power being one of the awesome community managers for World of Warships for so long, and then he had to stay behind in San Francisco when they moved their office from Emeryville to Austin. He chose to stay behind and not continue working for Wargaming. But I'll tell you, it was so cool to meet up with him on the Hornet and be like, you've given me so many ships, let me return the favor. Cluster ships at H9.
Actually,
yeah.
Zed, I have a quick story to tell, if you don't mind.
Let's close out the replay.
Okay, sure.
Let's close out the replay first, and then, because I if this goes to YouTube, I don't want people on YouTube to be like, "Come on, Zath, end the damn thing already," or not click on the video because it's 5 minutes longer. Anyways, Wolfie, this was a good replay. This was a lot to look at, and as you've been seeing your render, hopefully you've been noticing just how far away your carrier has been. Even right now, you're about a full grid square away from a teammate. That's about the right distance, maybe 2, especially early in the game, to be away from your team. But you're in a position right here where you're running away, which is an unenviable one. It's easier to be slowly creeping up and advancing with your team, and then turning around, having that room to turn around if necessary, versus here, being the concern of being run down by a Sharnors 43 is kind of a scary thought. But anyway, thanks for sending in the replay, dude. And thank you for all the support over the years. And, hopefully we gave you some things to think about, right? There's a lot to learn in this replay. And how far can they shoot? I don't know. I never worry about how far players can shoot, because you're assuming they can actually hit what they shoot. And most players can't, or, won't target you, or maybe they will, but they'll miss by a good amount. You know what I'm saying? So I don't worry about that so much, especially at the lower tiers. Higher tiers, yeah, maybe you'd be concerned about that, and you find an 899 div or something and they go and snipe you. That could be, certainly problematic. Anyway, thanks for the replay, and let's move on to our next one, shall we?